British police make 5 arrests in the ongoing investigation into the terror attacks on Paris and Brussels. 4 people, including a woman, were arrested Thursday in the English city of Birmingham. A 5th arrested today at London's Gatwick Airport. While police would not elaborate on these arrests, the man in the hat suspect, Mohammed Abrini, is suspected of making several trips to the Birmingham area last year. As the terror investigations continue, President Obama said this week that we, as a country, are gaining on ISIS.
On the ground in Syria and in Iraq, ISIL is on the defensive. Our 66-member coalition, including Arab partners, is on the offensive. We have momentum, and we intend to keep that momentum.
Joining me now with his perspective on how the fight against ISIS is going, Qubad Talabani, Deputy Prime Minister of the Kurdistan Regional Government. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me back, Brett.
First, let's just get your assessment of what this enemy looks like on the ground. You all are fighting them directly every day.
The enemy is a brutal enemy. It is entrenched in Iraq, but also in Syria. And they have, obviously, as we know, taken a large piece of territory. But over the last year and a half of coordinated effort, we've been able to degrade this enemy. We've been able to take territory away from this enemy. And the coalition strikes have hurt this enemy's resources and its infrastructure. But we cannot underestimate the ability of this enemy to continue to wreak havoc and cause damage.
There was, the last time we talked, there were a lot of problems with red tape, getting you weapons and equipment. Where does that stand?
If you look at our weapons capabilities today, they are still no match for ISIS's. ISIS still has much greater firepower
Some
than
U.S.
we do.
equipment, actually.
Yes, they have in fact the best of the U.S. equipment, which they were able to take from the Iraqi army that deserted Mosul and those areas. But they've also, in their fight in Syria, taken the best of Russian weaponry that was supplied to the Syrians. So they have a good stockpile of weaponry to be able to inflict their damage. Our weaponry that we have is still old, is still outdated, and in terms of ammunition, we nowhere near have the amount that we need to be able to effectively destroy this group.
Well, you're here asking for more support up on Capitol Hill. Why, for somebody sitting at home, why is that important in a tight time in the economy here in the U.S.? Why is it important to give Kurdistan and your government more support?
Well, we are in the front lines against ISIS. We are defending the rest of the world from this group, and we are inflicting damage to this group on a daily basis. But our resources are limited. We have a major financial and economic crisis in Kurdistan because of Baghdad cutting our budget way back in 2014, because in Kurdistan we are housing 1.8 million people that have been displaced as a result of this conflict with ISIS. This is causing a major strain on our resources. Of course, as an economy that's dependent on the price of oil, we've seen how the sharp decline in oil prices has further impacted our economy, and that is ultimately going to take its toll on our ability to fight the fight that we need to fight. So we need the support from our friends in the United States so we can keep our front line strong, so we can keep ISIS on the defensive, and we can keep the rest of the world safe.
You know, to hear the President this week at the CIA, after meeting with his National Security Council, it sounds pretty good about the fight against ISIS from his point of view, from his vantage point. You know, there was this effort to take Mosul, and we heard about efforts to go after and get ISIS out of Mosul, but yet it hasn't happened. What's taken so long?
Well, yes, there's been progress against ISIS, but again, we have to be careful. We cannot underestimate the ability of this group, and at the same time, we have an Iraqi army which is also a critical component of this fight against ISIL, that is just not ready right now. The Mosul offensive is an important offensive. It's imperative for the safety of Kurdistan, for defeating ISIL, and we need, I think, a more comprehensive plan in place that ultimately the Iraqi armed forces and the Iraqi government are in charge of creating.
It sounds, excuse me, it sounds like that Iraqi government is kind of a mess right now. You had the Prime Minister kind of disband his cabinet. It sounds not comforting to people watching from the outside.
It's very frustrating. It's completely an unnecessary crisis that has now compounded the political, the economic crisis, and all of the other challenges facing the country. This is not the time to disband the cabinet. This is not what we would consider reform. But now, again, we're in the midst of this political crisis which we as Kurds are trying to play a constructive role to try to diffuse the current tensions between the various different groups. Obviously, in order to have an effective campaign against ISIS, we need an effective government in Iraq.
The American people know that U.S. troops are on the ground in Iraq. I don't think they know to the extent they are on or near the front lines. There are U.S. troops in your region, right? Special forces and a joint operations center?
There is a minimal U.S. footprint right now that is involved in advising us and helping us coordinate the airstrikes that are pounding ISIS positions. But ultimately, you know, we have been tasked, and this is our fight, and we are in the front lines of this fight. And any support that we're getting is much appreciated. We need more support. But we are ultimately we are the boots on the ground in this fight against ISIS.
We have some pictures of some of the chemical weapons or the alleged use of chemical weapons by ISIS, especially in the Syrian area. Are you seeing this more and more? Is this enemy evolving in what they're doing?
Yes, we have seen ISIS use chemical weapons against our troops, against the Kurdish Peshmerga, and I think this has escalated the conflict to a new level. And this also means that we have to be careful in our preparations for gaining more territory away from ISIS. I don't think this group is just going to keel over and die and let us walk into Mosul and liberate Mosul. So we have to be prepared for every eventuality and for every evil act that this group can carry out against us.
Well, we wish you well. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you, Brett.